There are literally thousands of videos online that teach exercises designed to get rid of back pain. You've probably tried more exercises than you care to remember. And sure, some of them might have worked and given you relief temporarily, but the pain always comes back. That's because the exercises that most videos teach are stretching exercises. And while stretching can have many benefits within the body, getting rid of pain long term isn't one of them, because it's effectively going against what your brain is trying to do. Pain is a protective mechanism that your brain creates to try and warn you about a potential danger. Stiffness and inflexibility are also warning signals. They're along the same spectrum. So if your brain is holding your back tight, it's doing that as a warning, and then when you try and stretch it, you're doing the opposite of what your brain wants you to do, which is why sometimes it can give you temporary relief, but then the pain comes back. If you want to get rid of your pain permanently, you need to look and try and address the underlying causes of pain. And that's what I'm going to start to show you how to do in this video. I'm going to explain how back pain works, then I'm going to show you a series of exercises to address underlying causes of pain so that you can permanently get rid of back pain and start doing the things that you love again. Hopefully you find the video helpful. If you do, it would be much appreciated if you could give me a thumbs up, and it also really help me out if you could subscribe to my channel. It's going to help me get the word out to more people. Hopefully we can get a lot of people out of pain. If you want to permanently get rid of your back pain, it's really important that you understand how pain works. This has been shown time and time again in the research, and this is for two reasons. Firstly, understanding how pain works actually addresses one of the major underlying causes of pain, which is stress and fear. But then it also empowers you to take action and work on the things that you need to work on to permanently get rid of your pain. So if you want to get rid of your pain, it's really important to wrap your head around that, because it's very counterintuitive to what most people think. You also need to understand that pain and injury are different things. Injury is when we have damaged tissue. Pain is a signal created by the brain as a warning signal. We can have pain and an injury together. We can have agonizing pain with no injury whatsoever. And then we can have crazy injuries and things that we can see in scans and x-rays and MRIs, and someone can be completely pain-free. So we've got all the different options available to us. Research also shows that 90% of the people that have back pain, it's called non-specific back pain. And what that means is there's no obvious direct underlying cause of the pain. They don't really know what's causing it. So what you've got to really understand and just remind yourself over and over again about is that even if you've been to a doctor and you've had an x-ray, you've had an MRI and it's shown some kind of pathology, so like something that they can see on the scan, that's normally just a product of aging. So when they x-ray someone that's 60, there's like a 70% chance that they'll have herniation and degeneration. When they x-ray a 90-year-old, there's a higher percentage chance. It's just a normal product of aging, and just because you've seen something on a scan, it doesn't mean that you have to live with pain. Because pain is ultimately this protective mechanism created by your brain in response to perceived threat. So you want to think about your body as a threat bucket. It's got an ability to handle a certain amount of threat, or you can think of it as stress. And the threat bucket can overflow really quickly. So maybe you have a fall and an injury, and that can cause you to go from empty to overflowing, and that can cause you pain. Or you could be in the situation where just small threats build up over time, and gradually the threat bucket overflows, and that's how you ended up with back pain. But in both cases, it's still a case of emptying out the threat bucket, and to permanently get rid of pain, you've got to identify the major underlying causes of threat. And there can be multiple different types of threat. We've already mentioned one of them, and that's stress and fear. So worrying about injury, thinking that you'll never be able to do something that you love again, worrying about bending down to pick up your kids, that's stressful. That actually feeds into increasing the amount of pain. If different joints in your body don't move properly, so maybe you injured your foot a long time ago and now the joints in the foot don't move properly. Now you're walking around all day, every day, and the foot isn't sending information to your brain. Your brain can create pain as a protective mechanism. Inflammation can create pain. And you might have experienced this before in the past. Maybe you got the flu or you had a cold and all your joints started aching. You didn't injure anything. It's just that inflammation was a contributor and it created threat within your body and led to pain. There are other things that most people don't think about, like how your visual system works or how your balance system works in the inner ear. And we're going to be doing exercises for that in a moment. So there's lots of different potential underlying causes of threat. It's going to be slightly different for each person. So what we need to do is go through a series of exercises targeted towards different parts of the brain, addressing different potential threats, and we're going to find out which ones work for your body and which ones help you to improve how your back moves and feels. And then when we find ones that work for you, you're going to work on them on a regular basis. And by doing this over and over again, this is how you can get rid of pain permanently. So that's what we're going to do. As you go through these exercises, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comment section. If one of the exercises works really well for you, let me know in the comment section. Let's get into it. So we're going to start by testing your back to see how it's moving and to see how it's feeling. There's a lot of different ways that we could do it, but I'm going to show you 3 versions that you can work on. And I want you to choose a version that's maybe a little bit uncomfortable, but I don't want you to choose something that causes any sharp or horrible pains, because I don't want you to practice going into pain over and over again for the reasons that I've just mentioned in terms of the threat bucket. So out of these 3 options, test them all out, but choose one where you can kind of feel a little bit of stiffness, a little bit of discomfort, but not a crazy amount of pain. So the first assessment is going to be a trunk rotation. We're going to see how far I can rotate in each direction. When I do this, I'm going to keep my legs completely straight. I'm going to keep my feet flat on the floor, and then my arms are straight in front. And I'm just going to kind of look through my thumbs and see how far I'm rotating. Does it go further to the left? Does it go further to right? How does it feel when I get there? Does it feel nice in this position, or does it feel really stiff and uncomfortable? Then I'm going to do the same thing for the toe touch. So have your feet hip width apart, just bend down. See how far you can go. Can I go mid-shin, just below the knee? Can you touch the floor? Can you go palms on the floor? And then how does it feel when you get into that position? And what I want you to notice from that is I'm not massively flexible. I'm completely pain-free. I can play tennis for 15 hours a week. I can run down mountains. I can do anything that I want without pain, without flexibility. So if you're in a position where you're kind of really stiff and inflexible and you think that that's going to limit you from getting out of pain, that isn't the case. And I know that's something that I find frustrating when I watch videos online, because there's like really flexible yogis and people getting in crazy positions, and you think that you have to do that to get out of pain. You absolutely don't. Flexibility is not a requirement for being pain-free. We need to remove underlying sources of threat. So we've got the toe touch, and then the final test that you can do is going to be a back extension. So try those 3 exercises now, see how you feel, standardize them. Feel free to warm them up. So if you want to do that 5-10 times and just make sure your hamstrings are warm, or do the rotation a few times to make sure things are warm, do that now, and then choose the assessment that you're going to work with. So now that you've figured out which assessment you're going to do, we're going to go through a series of exercises. And what we're going to be doing are exercises targeted to a specific part of the brain that's really important for creating and coordinating movements within your spine. Because if you think back to the threat bucket that I've just mentioned, if the part of the brain that coordinates movement in the spine isn't working in the way that it should, that's a major source of threat, and your brain isn't going to want you moving into different positions, so it uses pain and stiffness to try and warn you and to try and protect you. So we're going to do a series of different exercises to activate that part of the brain. We're going to start with movements, which might seem a little bit more normal to you, and then we're going to do some exercises that you might not have seen before for the eyes and for the balance system in the inner ear. So if we start with the movements, the way that you'll do this, you'll do your test. So for me, I'm going to test my trunk rotation to the left. Okay, so I know how far I'm going. Then the first exercise that I'm going to try is a pelvic circle. So I'm just going to try and make a circle with the pelvis. A lot of people that have back pain really struggle to make this movement. And because the brain can't coordinate the pelvis, that raises the level of threat, and it can be an underlying cause of pain and discomfort. So it sounds silly, but when I try and do a coordinated movement like this, a part of the brain called the cerebellum that coordinates movement, and especially the middle of the cerebellum, which controls the spine, is having to work really hard. So I want you to see if you can actually do this. Maybe do it 5 or 6 times in each direction, trying to keep your upper body still. You're going to have a soft bend in your knees, and then you're going to try and think about keeping the rest of your spine long, and just do that in each direction. It seems very simple, but then once you've done it, you're going to retest, and you're going to see what happens to your rotation. So I don't know whether you could see that. For me, my rotation improved just a little bit. So I went from around 90 degrees to just past 90 degrees. So if that happens, then we look at that and go, okay, that was a good activation for this part of the brain. It reduced my brain's perception of threat, so we could use that exercise on an ongoing basis. So give it a try now and see how you get on. And then we'll move on to the next exercise, which is going to be a thoracic circle. So now we've moved this part of the spine. Now we're going to try and move the top part of the spine in a circular motion. And these are assessments in addition to training exercises. So you should be able to coordinate your pelvis. If you can't, we know that you need to work on it. And you should be able to create a circle with your upper back. And if you can't, again, we know that the part of the brain that coordinates movement isn't working the way that you should. So we're going to look at it like that, but then we're also going to reassess and we're going to see how your body responds. And for me, that didn't change anything. So the pelvis gave me an improvement. The thoracic circle didn't change anything. I was the same afterwards. So give it a go and see how you get on. And again, this is another common area that people have problems with. A lot of people can't actually round the back, and they can't extend the back, and they can't glide the spine from side to side, and they can't turn it into this motion. Now, it doesn't matter if you make the movement perfect, just give it a go, spend a minute trying to figure it out, see if you can get your body working, and then retest and see what happens, because it's the activation in the brain area that we're trying to get. And then the third exercise that we're going to do to work on the coordination of the spine is going to be a neck circle. So the neck circle looks like this. It's a funny looking movement. It's a combination of a forwards and backwards head glide and then a sideways head glide. And you can try them and test them all individually. So you could maybe try those two and then retest your range of motion, and then go for the circle and retest your range of motion and see how your body responds. And for me, they also gave an improvement. So far what I found is my pelvis gave me an improvement and the neck gave me an improvement. But I want you to go through those exercises, do them, then retest your range of motion, see whether it improved or see whether it stayed the same. When you do that retest of the range of motion, it's really important that you try and be as impartial as possible. Don't try and prove or disprove anything, just do it. Now, if I go to 90 degrees and it feels really stiff, and then I go to 90 degrees and it feels much more comfortable, that's going to be improvement. If I go to 90 degrees and it feels really stiff, and then I go to 110 degrees and it feels stiff, that's also an improvement because we've got a range of motion. It is also possible that your range of motion can get worse. And there's a reason for that, but here we're trying to identify exercises that reduce threat, so then you can work on them regularly to try and upregulate function in this part of the brain. Now we're going to work on exercises for your balance system, the vestibular system that lives in your inner ear. This is one of the most important systems in your body. It has a number of key roles. One of them is controlling your balance and controlling the way that your spine moves. So when I move my head in different directions, there are different receptors in this vestibular system that detect movement in different directions. They then send information back, and that tells, my brain then tells my spine and the muscles in my spine and in my legs what to do to help me balance, to help me walk, to help me move safely. So the way that you want to think about this, if the balance system in the inner ear doesn't like forward movement, often if you try and bend forwards, it's going to create pain and stiffness to try and bring you back up because it feels threatened moving forwards. If your brain doesn't like moving back because the receptors in the back part aren't doing what they should be doing, it can often prevent you from moving back. So what I found working with people for a number of years is that this system is often one of the major underlying causes of pain. The good news is it's really easy to train. So again, you're going to do your assessment first. So I've got my trunk rotation. I'm then going to do an activation exercise for this part of the brain and then retest. So what I'm going to do, hold my thumb out in front of me, look at my thumb and turn my head left and right. I'm going to go for this about 10 times and then I'm going to retest and then I'm going to see what happens to my range of motion. And for me, it's staying about the same. So far, I've still had the best response from the pelvis and from the neck movements. but I want you to try it and see how your body responds. Now, when you do this, we're training the balance system in the inner ear. So if you have difficulties within this system, you might feel a little bit dizzy, you might feel a little bit nauseous or lightheaded. If that happens, just stop and take a rest. But for me, that really strongly indicates to me that this system is potentially contributing to what you're experiencing within your back. So you're definitely going to need to work on it at some point. It's just about going at a pace that your body can handle. But try turning your head side to side, and then you're going to try moving your head up and down. And again, you're going to go for about 10 reps, and then you're going to reassess and see how your body responds. So do those 2 assessments now, do the retest, and leave me a comment. Let me know if you had an increase in range of motion. And remember, I'm testing my trunk rotation. You could be testing your toe touch. You could be testing your back extension. The final set of exercises that we're going to work on here is for your visual system. So we've just looked at the balance system in the inner ear. Now we're thinking about the eyes, another massively important system that help us to navigate the world. So normally when people think about pain, when they think about injuries, they're just thinking about muscles. They're just thinking about joints. But the vestibular system and the visual system are our 2 most dominant systems that help us to move around the world. And if there are challenges within the visual system, the brain can find that really threatening. And challenges within the visual system are also why people often get neck pain or back pain while they're working on computers, because of the types of light that's coming through. But we're going to do a couple of simple exercises and see how your body responds. So again, start off with your assessment, and then the first exercise we're going to do is going to be a side-to-side switch or saccade. So I've got my thumbs in this position. I'm just going to look at one thumbnail, then the other thumbnail, and just keep on switching back and forth between the 2. Now, it's good to start with around 30 seconds, so you can just get your phone out, set a timer, do 30 seconds of switches. Once you've done that, reassess. So I only did 5 switches, it didn't have an impact. I want you to go for 30. If nothing changes after 30, try it for 60 seconds and see if you get a change in range of motion. So that's the first exercise. The second exercise is going to be similar but different. I'm going to use my thumb, but now I'm going to follow it in a smooth motion. So I've got my eyes focused on my thumbnail, and I'm just moving it back and forth. I'm going to start slowly, and then I'm going to move it relatively quickly, like this. And again, I would start with around 30 seconds and then reassess, and then go to around a minute if nothing changes and reassess there. So do that now, see how you get on, and then leave me a comment down below. Let me know what happens. So how did you get on with the exercises? What we're looking for is 2 or 3 good exercises that gave you either a big increase in range of motion or reduction in pain and stiffness. And once you've identified them, you're going to work on them frequently throughout the day. So it's a good idea to kind of set your alarm every 2 hours and do a few repetitions. But you want to do them in the way that you've just done them. So you'll test your range of motion, you'll do the exercise, and then you'll retest the range of motion. And what this will do is each time you do the exercise, it's going to activate the part of the brain that we want to improve its function to try and address the underlying cause, and you're going to go into that new range of motion and get a reduction in pain and stiffness, and that's going to feed back and it's going to create this positive cycle. And by doing it frequently, the goal is to rewire the brain to permanently get rid of pain. Now, we've only targeted one part of the brain. Potentially what we've done here can be enough to make massive changes within your body, or depending on what's going on and what your history is, you might need to work on other exercises in addition to this or after this. So you might start with this, and then we might need to work on something else after. So if you're interested in potentially working with me, I'll leave a link in the description so you can go over to my website and get in contact with me that way. Any questions about what I've covered here, obviously leave them down in the comment section. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, really helps me out if you could do that. And if you want to share this video with any friends or family members that are struggling with back pain, that'd be awesome as well.